Welcome to the UN ESCAP expert dialogue on the topic of data partnerships to leave no one behind. Ways forward for citizen-generated data. And of course, in meetings as such, we shouldn't use acronyms too many, but I think one acronym will be used a lot of times today, and this is CGD. So let me say that right away. We're talking about citizen-generated data when we say CGD today. And before we start, let me make some logistical announcements. It would be great if everybody could stay on mute throughout the webinar. And it's also preferred for the moment to leave your camera off. Speakers will be addressed and then they can turn their camera on. And you will have the chance to get interactive later on in the session because we will have breakout groups. I will announce that later. And there will be the chance to have a real chat. And I also want to make you aware that UN ESCAP will record this meeting to make it available later on for rewatching on their website. Yeah, with that being said, welcome again to our meeting. This expert dialogue and also the Stats Cafe that UN ESCAP organizers are running format of online webinars hosted by ESCAP, and they bring together on a regular basis key development actors, governments, and the statistics community of the Asia-Pacific region. This particular dialogue is co-organized between ESCAP and the Leave No One Behind Partnership, which is a coalition of international and national NGOs working on citizen-generated data, CGD. And it's working on its role, the role of CGD to make voices of marginalized groups heard and count. And this session is further supported by the UN Statistics Division. So on behalf of all the co-organizers, let me thank you for your attendance. My name is Peter Koblowski. I'm your moderator today. I'm a senior partnership manager working at the International Civil Society Center, which is a hub for international NGOs located in Berlin. And the center also serves as the global secretariat of the Leave No One Behind Partnership, which is one of the co-hosts today. Just a brief overview of what you can expect today. We have 1 hour 45 in total. And you will hear case studies from 4 countries presented by 2 speakers on CGD. And there will also be a presentation from a national statistic office and from one national line ministry, sharing their perspectives on citizen-generated data. Further, there will be a little poll where we ask for your opinion. And as I said, there will be a 50 minutes breakout session where we break out into 3 groups, to discuss some specific questions, which are, of course, focused on setting up data partnerships to leave no one behind. And at the end of our meeting, we will hear back from the breakout groups and summarize our thoughts around this topic and see if there is a perceived way forward on this topic in the room. Yes, and with that being said, I would like to hand over to Rachel Bevan, Director of the Statistics Division at ESCAP, who would also like to address a few welcoming words to you. Rachel, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Peter, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure as well to be able to join Peter in welcoming you to today's expert dialogue on citizen-generated data. So as Peter said, I'm Rachel Bevan. I'm the Director of Statistics Division here at UN ESCAP. Just to say, as ever at these sessions, we've got a packed schedule, but as we do go through it all, please do try and add in your comments, your questions in the chat box, because we do want to try and make this as interactive as possible. And we really want to hear from all of you as well as from the different speakers. As we said already, today we're looking at citizen-generated data. So that's data created by people for people. And today we're seeing huge changes in the way in which data is collected, the way it's managed, accessed, and used. We've also seen a huge rise recently in the number of people with access to the internet and mobile phones, which means that we're now at a point where individuals can actually become data producers. And in recent years, we've seen how citizen-generated data has really gained traction as a potentially viable data source for measuring countries' progress towards meeting the SDGs, but particularly as well for those hard-to-reach populations. But this is not about replacing traditional sources of data like the census, surveys and administrative systems, which many of us are very familiar with. Rather, citizen-generated data actually provides a complement to these other sources, and it provides a range of insights on well-being of particular groups and particular issues that might not actually be very well covered by the traditional methods. Traditional data sources often leave out some of the most marginalised groups, and citizen-generated data can be really useful in actually filling those gaps. We also see that citizen-generated data can be used for a whole variety of purposes, including as a way for governments to engage directly with citizens, which really helps to enhance government accountability and transparency. At the global level as well, we saw earlier this year at the UN Statistical Commission, where they recognised the usefulness of citizen-generated data to fill data gaps. We've also seen the United Nations Statistics Division, they're currently developing their own quality assurance toolkit to actually help national statistical officers as they work to incorporate these new data sources into official statistics. Recently as well, UN Statistics Division partnered with the International Civil Society Centre and GIZ to hold a high-level political forum on citizen-generated data. And this forum actually highlighted the potential of CGD as a monitoring and planning tool to better account for the needs and conditions of marginalised communities in policy making. But for our region as well, in the Asia and Pacific, ESCAP published a working paper last year on the use of non-traditional data sources for compiling SDGs. And in that paper, we actually saw how important these citizen-generated data can actually be to promote the inclusive production of SDG indicators and other development indicators as well. So Statistics Division at ESCAP, we're really committed to supporting national statistical systems to improve the quality of their official statistics, and citizen-generated data really embodies a new exciting tool that can help countries to achieve that goal. Today's expert dialogue complements the high-level commitments and the conceptual frameworks by actually showcasing what's really happening. So we can actually see those real-world applications of citizen-generated data in filling the data gaps and promoting data partnerships to leave no one behind. So I'm delighted today that we've got an excellent set of speakers for the expert dialogue. They're going to share their experiences, both in terms of opportunities, but also the challenges in citizen-generated data, and particularly around things like the quality of it, for how it's used in monitoring SDGs, but also looking at other national, regional and global targets. And we've already heard a welcome today from Peter Kugloski, and he is going to take over now in terms of introducing you to all the other presenters and to carry on doing the moderation. But I will continue to listen in and to engage very actively, and will be here as well to take part in the breakout groups, which I think is a great way for us all to make sure that we can share everything that we're all doing on this. So let me hand back to Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for the warm welcoming words. And as you said, I continue with my business and hand over directly to the next speaker, who unfortunately cannot be here live today because the next speaker is from the United Nations Statistics Division. And as most of you know, they are based in New York. So timing-wise, it's a bit unfortunate that we cannot have a live contribution today. But Ms. Hao-Yi Chen, she is the coordinator of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys at UNSD, has recorded a welcome message to all of you. So I asked the colleagues from ESCAP to please roll her video now.
Dear colleagues, it is a great honor to be part of the expert dialogue. I would like to thank the organizers of the meeting, my colleagues from ESCAP Statistics Division, whom we have been working closely with on many topics, and to our partner on citizen-generated data, Peter and his colleagues from the International Civil Society Center. I would also like to thank the national partners whom we have been or will be working closely with on this important topic. My name is Hao-Yi Chen, coordinator of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys, a group that consists of 11 international agencies and 10 member states. I'm also part of UN Statistics Division. Dear colleagues, data produced by citizens have become an important source for informing policies and monitoring, including on SDGs, and for scientific knowledge production. These data can also help mobilize action, raise awareness on the world's most pressing social, environmental, and economic challenges, and include citizens in public decision-making. Engagement of citizens in various stages of data production also helps improve transparency, accountability, and effectiveness of public institutions. Today, we will hear many exciting examples on how partners are formed to unleash the power of citizens to leave no one behind. As mentioned earlier, and also in the concept note, UNSD is currently working on a global toolkit on quality assurance for producers of citizen-generated data. Great thanks to our national and international partners for testing and continuing to improve the toolkit, and we look forward to continue our collaboration. I would also like to take this opportunity to let you know that UNSD is organizing an expert group meeting on harnessing data by citizens for public policy and SDG monitoring in November this year. Thanks to our colleagues from ESCAP for kindly hosting the meeting. During the meeting, we'll discuss different ways that citizens can be engaged in producing data and making an impact on policies, including discussions on various concepts and definitions and key attributes in engaging citizens in the entire data value chain, and review challenges of integrating these data into official statistics and policy processes. We hope that a conceptual framework can be proposed on how citizens can be engaged to fill data gap and inform policy, and we will have a clear understanding on standards and guidance needed for both national statistical offices and producers of citizen-generated data that can help foster integration of CGDs into public policy. Thank you very much, and apologies that I will not be able to join you today as I am on my flight back to New York. Have a great discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Howie, also for your welcoming words. In absence, it was great to hear an input from UNSD and also to hear that they will have this workshop in November around the IAEG SDGs meeting, also focusing on ways forward how to include civil society much more in all steps of SDG implementation, which is very much welcomed. With that being said, let's hand over to the third co-organizer of this meeting, the Leave No One Behind partnership. And here I can take off my moderator hat and take on another hat because I'm also the global coordinator of the partnership. And I would like to ask the colleagues from ESCAP to start the slideshow so that I can take it over. And yes, I think there it comes. Perfect. I take over control. Just give me a second for the technique. So we are the Leave No One Behind partnership. As I said, our motto and also our goal is to make voices heard and count. And when we say that, we mean the voices of marginalized communities in the SDG process. And how this works, I mean, can be best explained probably by a short 2-minute video. So let me start rolling the video. Yes. So that's us. That's the Leave No One Behind partnership. I hope you could hear the video well. Just a few accommodating words, because I mean, this is really in a nutshell of what the partnership and its colleagues at the global, at the national, and at the local level are doing. And this will be best explained by our speakers who will follow directly after me. But just to recap, we exist since 2017. You have seen we have been founded by a number of the larger NGOs, but we work very closely with nationally based NGOs and community-based organizations at the local level. We have 7 country coalitions at the moment in the countries you can see here. This is Bangladesh, India, Kenya, Nepal, Vietnam, Malawi, and Denmark. And you will hear today from the from the 4 Asian countries of the Leave No One Behind partnership: Bangladesh, Nepal, Vietnam, and India. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say much more, because I think my colleagues from the country coalitions can give you much better insight in how this work actually looks. So with that, I say thank you for your attention so far. And I hand over to my colleague Van Antran. She is Program Director at Management and Sustainable Development Institute, MSD, in Vietnam. And Anne will present on behalf of the Leave No One Behind coalitions in India and in Vietnam. Handing over to you, Anne.
So thank you, Peter. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. So it's my honor today to represent the Leave No One Behind Vietnam and India to share with you on our efforts, particularly those of the citizen-generated data inputs. So the organizers, I don't think that I can see the take control button. So.
Yeah, can the organizers help?
I can move the slide, so it's okay. It works well for me. Okay, so first of all, so let me show you on some information on what our colleagues in India have been doing. And as you can see from the slide, the WNTA.
I'm sorry,
yes.
we cannot see it, I think. I can try to move your slides if possible. Now you have control, I think. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. Just wanted to make sure everybody can see what you're talking about.
Okay, so everything is okay now. You can see the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, and sorry for the interruption, and sorry for the some like a technical issues. So again, first of all, let me show you some information on what our colleagues in India have been doing, and as you can see from the slides here, the WNTA is a coalition inclusive of the community-based organizations along with other civil society actors. They work to empower the marginalized communities through different actions, focused on encouraging the governance capabilities. Their work with SDGs has been, recognized by the UN government, the government, the Indian government and the UN in India, and also was included in the LNOB, the Leave No One Behind chapter in India's VNR 2020. Okay, so talking about the CGD in India, so selecting sub-communities within the recognized marginalized communities, the WNTA conducted participatory studies to generate data which empirically showcases the challenges these communities continue to face. And the idea was that, the national aggregate data set on which the policies are being made don't actually adequately represent the challenges of the most marginalized, and therefore it failed to uphold the LNOB agenda. So to ensure the upholding community agency, the volunteers from the communities were trained to collect the data through apps which was then centrally monitored. And the questionnaire was also finalized in consultation with the volunteers to ensure addressing as many challenges as possible. And the data collected resulted in 2 volumes of reports, as you can see in the slides. That is the like the captures of the reports generated from the data collection. The data was then also further looked at from the lens of the children and urban poor communities to map the intersectional challenges. And from the data, and these are the findings of the data. As you can see it from the slides, the data showed big gaps in the awareness, the coverage, and implementation of the government benefits. And from the legal identities to coverage under essential nutrition schemes for children, access among the studied communities was found extremely low, so more so in comparison to the national averages. And the data also showed that the traditional hierarchies of caste and gender continue to impair the development of these communities, and therefore revealing a huge need to implement the mechanisms that enable a system change. Yes, so talking about the impacts of the CGD, so here at the national level, so the data was actually generated from the voices of the invisible, marginalized communities who can hardly find adequate representation in the national survey. And with this effort, the network together with UNICEF have done the community-based monitoring through the data collections and social mobilization in 32 districts with 1,100 volunteers. And also 45 community-led organizations were trained and built capacity on data collection. And the network also did campaigns and joint activities with the communities to ensure the sustained engagement from the communities. And at the higher level, at the global level, our colleagues in India, together with the LNOB Global Partnership, the WNTA have been in partnership with ICSC to push for formalizing the citizen-generated data at the global level. And recently, the findings of this report, the data was also presented in the UN Data Forum in 2021. So these are about, the effort from our colleague in India. And now, so let's move to the LNOB Vietnam network, which includes 13 international and local organizations, and currently coordinated by MSD. The joint efforts of the network have been resulted in some, key achievements in terms of bringing the voices of the marginalized communities to the policy, to the higher levels. As you can see from the screens, for example, so nearly 80% of the recommendations from the LNOB Vietnam was actually integrated and recognized into the 2020 National Report on the implementation of the SDG. And the LNOB Vietnam network also successfully compiled the SDG 16 Plus report with the featured cases provided by LNOB members as strong evidence for our members' effort in contributing to the SDGs implementation in Vietnam. And the CGD projects, which is currently in progress. Hopefully, we can have the report issued in a couple of months, and we expect that this report will provide concrete findings and implication for the network and the government in terms of how the communities perceive SDG implementation. And most recently, the LNOB Vietnam 2020 and 2021 highlight report has just been published, featuring the typical contributions of the LNOB members in the process of implementing, SDG. And in the coming time, the key priorities of the network include 3 key tasks, including completing the CGD 2022 report, then developing the CGD data handbook, and also contributing to Vietnam Voluntary National Review 2023. And now, please let me take some final minutes of my presentation to share with you a bit more about the citizen-generated data projects in Vietnam. So very much similar to CGD studies from other LNOB networks in Vietnam, we also like to collect the voices from the marginalized groups, including the children, youth, the women, the people with disabilities, and the CSOs. And the survey is being done in 3 regions across Vietnam: the north, the central, and the south of Vietnam, in 3 kind of community levels, which is urban, rural, and mountainous areas. We use 3 key methodologies: a questionnaire, in-depth interview, and then the community dialogues to verify the findings of the report. And the survey will engage the voices of around like 3,000 local citizens, and focusing on the 5 SDGs, which is the SDG number 1, 4, 5, 6, 13, and 16. We also provide 2 training courses for our CSO partners. The first one was done already, which is focusing on the SDG agenda in Vietnam, and the second one will be done on data literacy and data-driven research. We do hope that like we can share with you guys, like the findings of the CGD study Vietnam very shortly. So thank you so much for the listening. So now over to my colleague to share with you more about their efforts in the country. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anne, for presenting on India and Vietnam both. Thank you very much indeed. And with that, I want to hand over to Mr. Santosh Thapa, Youth Engagement Coordinator at VSO Nepal. Santosh, can you turn your camera on and take over control of the slideshow? You will present on behalf of the coalitions in Nepal and in Bangladesh. And with that, I hand over to you, Santosh.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Anne, for taking us through the LNOB works on CGD, especially in India and Vietnam. Now I'll be sharing the initiative and the effort that LNOB coalition from Nepal and Bangladesh are making at the present. Let me start sharing the efforts of LNOB Bangladesh at first. The LNOB in Bangladesh started working since 2018, mainly focusing on street dwellers and floating population. But since 2020, the coalition is running a scale-up project called Citizen Scorecard on Public Services and Resources. It focuses mainly on SDG 3, 10, and 16. And it aims to access the accessibility of the marginalized people to public resources and the services, and develop a feedback mechanism using the community-driven data. The project has raised at least 6,400 people from across 10 marginalized communities, including ethnic minorities, transgenders, acid survivors, urban floating population, and so on, across 64 districts in the country. For this, the coalition is using Community Scorecard as a tool to collect views of the marginalized group in those districts. The findings has been disseminated to wider stakeholders, especially to the ministries, local governments, media, and also with the donors. And the policy recommendation has been made. Some of the recommendation has been adopted and also initiated by the government. One of the prominent example is the introduction of health card for inclusive and quality service, which can be considered as a huge success for LNOB Bangladesh on CGD process. So these initial successes are very exciting and motivating for us. Therefore, LNOB Bangladesh is planning on developing community gatekeepers from the marginalized community with rigorous trainings and also the continuation of scorecard practices. The coalition also aims piloting a live dashboard, so that is what we say is like the digitization of the citizen-generated data, especially for SDG monitoring. It also aims to continue the consultation with the National Statistics Office for the recognition of the community-driven data to fill up the gap. So with this brief sharing of LNOB Bangladesh Coalition, I would like to move forward and share some details of LNV Consortium in Nepal. LNV Consortium in Nepal is a joint platform comprising of NGOs and INGOs that has agreed to make a joint effort in the areas, especially in strengthening the capacity of civil society organization, for generating inclusive data, for evidence-based decision-making along with the multi-stakeholder engagement to track the progress on SDGs. It contributed in meaningful engagement of CSOs through capacitating the marginalized communities to raise their concern, and also hold concerned duty bearer to account. So in Nepal, the coalition has been launched in 2018, and since then we are actively engaged in Nepal's second voluntary national review in the year 2020, provided a strong platform to raise the voices of marginalized youth. National Planning Commission, the lead agency coordinating voluntary national review in country, acknowledged the information provided by these consultative procedures and the recommendation on additional efforts required to raise concerns of the marginalized communities. The procedure of tracking the progress on SDG monitoring has been initiated since the inception of the consortium in the country, and it will be further expanded in the coming years. In recent year, we have also initiated more coordinated effort jointly with NGO Federation in Nepal, especially in inclusive SDG data partnership. So this inclusive SDG data partnership initiative was co-hosted by GIZ, Partner for Review, ICSC, and Danish Institute for Human Rights, together with different national CSO partners. And we also jointly engaged with our government counterpart, mainly with National Planning Commission, Central Bureau of Statistics, and also with the National Human Rights Commission. As a result of this partnership, the toolkit on the citizen-generated data has been prepared in close coordination with the government bodies and other CSO counterparts. Definitely, our organizer will be sharing the toolkit among all the participants, and you can also find those details on the this webinar website as well. So moving on to the next, in this journey, it is proud for me to share that there has been increased commitment received from the local government and the federal government agencies, especially in strengthening citizen-generated data, as well as additional budgetary allocation to strengthen the process at the same time, especially in achieving SDG target. There is also increasing realization on the relevance of CZD for equitable development. There has been more positive support from the government, as evidence with the inclusion of marginalized youth agenda in voluntary national review report. In addition, CSO's alliance building has been more effective in standardizing citizen-generated data procedures together with government and other stakeholders. So that is so far our achievement. Finally, I would like to share some lesson learned and the way forward collectively of our LNOB countries from Asia, including Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Vietnam. One of our major lesson learned in this due course of time is there still exists systemic discrimination together with the unequal power relation in the community level. And also there exist the states are often not willing to accept the civil society data, mainly due to the lack of framework on citizen-generated data collection and the processing. We have realized that the lack in institutionalized citizen-generated data mechanism ultimately undermines the accountability. The important realization is that the road from evidence to policy change is very long and not straight. And in addition to that, though the CZD has a large potential, but there is very little funding to support this. There is also equal need for more grassroots data collaboration between the community, civil society organizations and the communities. Finally, it is also essential to understand that the civil society spaces are shrinking at present. That limits us, or it is limiting the space for dialogue with the community. As a way forward, what we can share over here is that there is a need of more commitment to address systemic discrimination by tracking key dimensions, particularly the SDG goals like 5, 10, and 16. There is also need for robust partnership between government and civil society organization to address quality concerns. It is also essential to leverage citizen-generated data to promote transparency and accountability. More importantly, more investment in citizen-generated data through donors and governments is essential so that we can build the capacity of civil society organization to provide quality evidence. Additionally, civil society organization can and need to mainstream leave no one behind through inclusive advocacy in their programs. It is also essential to ensure people's voices are heard and count through inclusive and data-driven policy planning. Finally, in this era of mass communication and globalization, it is also important to create a dashboard to have citizen-generated data in the public forums. Last but not the least, it is equally important to strengthen global processes on inclusive SDGs at the same time. With this, I'd like to conclude my part of my presentation, and I'd like to hand over to Peter. Thank you, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Santosh, and also thank you again, Anne, for presenting the work of the Leave No One Behind coalitions in the countries of Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Vietnam. And I hope, dear audience, this gave you a fair impression of the work that the partnership is doing. I saw that several of you are posting questions into the chat. Please, I encourage all of you, if you have questions, post them into the chat. And addressing now also again Anne and Santosh, please also feel free to answer in the chat, because I don't know if we will have the time to discuss all the questions later in the meeting, but what you can already answer, please answer already in the chat. And with that, I would like to come to our next section, the speaker section. And as I announced earlier, we will hear two perspectives, namely once the perspective of a national statistics office and once the perspective of a national line ministry on the use of CGD. And we will start with the statistics office perspective, and this will be done by Mr. Ramhari Gaire from the Central Bureau of Statistics in Nepal. Mr. Gaire, if you could turn on your camera and come to the stage, please. That would be great. Just for the audience, Mr. Gaire is a senior statistician at the Central Bureau of Statistics in Nepal, and he has way more than 30 years of professional experience in the statistics sector. And we are very eager to hear your perspective, sir. Handing over to you. Oh, and there's a loud background noise, but I think, okay, now it's better. Yes, closing the window might help. Thank you. And let us know if you can take control of the slides or if the colleagues from ESCAP should help you forwarding the slides.
Thank you, Peter. I cannot see that control part. Can someone help from UN ESCAP?
Yeah,
Okay,
Ross, if you could help with the slides.
with moving the slides. So please tell me next and I will do so.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Namaste from Kathmandu. Thank you for the opportunity to share my views regarding CGD from perspective of Central Bureau of Statistics, Nepal. Next slide, please. While talking about the data sources that community CSO can work on, let me give some picture of what National Statistical Office is doing. And for the first, I will start from the restructure of Nepal. In 2015, Nepal has been restructured as Federal Democratic Republic. So we have 3 tiers of government. There are altogether 759 governments, 1 federal, 7 provincial governments, and 753 local level governments. So there is a power sharing for the collection of statistics. They are provisioned in Schedule 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Next slide, please. So while talking about the official statistics in Nepal, we have very limited scope if we talk about community-driven data. Though in national level, we have low frequency production of data, not regular, and compilation of data in general only as a byproduct of regular activities in many administrative records. And there are some duplications in data production, and there is some gap in terms of data requirement. So coordination among data users, data providers, and data producers is a major problem here. Next, please. Data producers, they are the most important part of national statistical system. So for that, one need to be follow standard concepts, definitions, and classifications while producing data. And in terms of data production, quality is the major concern. For that, we need to enhance the capacity of human resources which are involved in the data production. For that, statistical capacity, statistical literacy, awareness are needed to the providers and users as well. And collaboration with all the stakeholders is a major part. Next slide, please. If we talk about National Statistical Office versus civil society organization in Nepal case, CSOs are very beginning stage. CBS especially focuses on carrying out traditional data collection methodologies, censuses and sample surveys. They are periodical. Censuses are very much strict on periods. The surveys are not regular. And government departments and universities generally, they produce designated statistics in their particular sector, especially administrative records and MIS, and complementary data is felt community needs and immediate needs. They are generally produced by communities, user groups, and cooperatives, but they are not much officially recorded. Qualitative data are more important for those organizations rather than quantitative because it needs more skill. For that, focus group discussion, case study, validation type of things are being done by CSOs in Nepal. Next, please. In terms of CGD, but in fact, CBS should expect more to complement in qualitative part of the data generation rather than quantitative, because it's a non-probabilistic sampling and launching a large-scale survey is very difficult for community-based organizations. So this data should be adhered by, however, fundamental principle of official statistics. So while talking about the quality, it should be all the data should be adhered by UNSD's fundamental principle of official statistics, and community generated data should be consistent with national indicators. Maybe in the beginning we can use some, but finally to complement they should follow standard methodologies. CGD more useful in local level planning rather than national. So because the disaggregation of data sets in the national statistical office are not readily available now. Existing sources of data in Nepal's case, mainly censuses and surveys, I mentioned before, and administrative records, other sources, other government departments, MIS data types, and research institutions. They do have credible surveys and data collation, they do. And civil society data are available very few, but in ad hoc level. And some trade organization data, they do have some records, organizational development for their organizational development. Next, please. In terms of, while talking about the censuses, population and housing census, we have 12 rounds of censuses starting from 1911 to 2021, and agricultural censuses starting from 1961. The latest one is 2021. We have 7 rounds. And economic census we did once in 2018, and industrial census started from 1965 until 2012. And this is the 10th census we had. This is the major data source of Nepal. Next, please. While talking about the sample surveys, the major sample surveys in Nepal's case is poverty is the major agenda for national planning. So living standard survey is the major one that provides poverty information for Nepal. So we have 3 rounds of survey and 4th in the field now. And labor force survey, we have 3 rounds starting from 1998, 2008, and 2017-18, every 10 years. NMIS, Nepal Multiple Indicator Cluster Surveys, there are 3 rounds, and Nepal Demographic Health Survey data sets, we have every 5 years. This one is on regular every 5 years. The last one conducted in 2016. An annual household survey started by Central Bureau of Statistics for the consumption data, started from 2012-13 and until we have 2016-17. So we have 5-6 rounds of AHS. And other than regular surveys, some different type of surveys, hard drug users survey in Nepal. We have 2 rounds of survey. This is somewhat different than quantitative survey carried out in Nepal. Next, please. So for different ministries and departments other than National Statistical Office, they have the major data sources is Management Information System. Now there are many sources of MIS, so all together they are called Integrated Management Information System. This is available in IHMIS, IEMIS, IAMIS, ITMIS. So they are available in sector of health, education, agriculture, and tourism, and they are major sources of administrative records. They come from ministries and their departments. Next, please. While talking about the individual MIS data that is available in Nepal's ministries, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health and Population, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information. These are some of the highlights that we collect data from. These are different sources and they are different nature. So altogether, these departments of ministry provide data, and the relevant divisions are also mentioned in their website. Next, please. I don't like to go in details. Where is the place now for the civil society and civil organizations? The civil society, in fact, is a part always for the data collection, whether it is a census or a survey or any other things. They are the respondent to provide information in the census and surveys, so then it's always valuable. And civil society provides feedback to engage with data users while preparing census and surveys. Always there is a consultation with different groups, civil society. So they promote statistical literacy, and it complements Leave No One Behind on data production and use, with the sectors that are not covered by official statistics and cannot covered by the Central Bureau of Statistics. There is always scope for CSOs, and sometimes individuals, they do provide valuable insight and data from their research and small surveys. Next, please. Now, civil society organization has they have more scope. They can, in fact, design and implement programs in line with government priorities, especially now focused to SDG indicators. They can engage with local governments especially and bring SDG agenda to the local level. As in central level, it's technically a bit difficult, but in local level, there needs more support for the information readily available to support immediate demand of the public, and to help raise the local government's awareness of national targets, and they can suggest local solutions for local problems by collecting information locally immediately, short period. Next, please. I try to make a SWOT analysis of this community generated data. There are some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and some challenges. If we start, though it's in the basic level now, there is a high demand of evidence-based policy because of the new acts, Statistical Act and other acts. They have authority to collect statistics. CSOs are getting more organized now. They are more recognized, more hard, in fact, of collecting information, and they have more opportunity to find solution of local problems. But there are some limitations. They are limited statistical infrastructure. Maybe they have limited statistical literacy, limited statistical human resources or capacity. And there are some opportunities. Administrative restructure of their country demands more data in the local level. So this is opportunity. This is a time for civil society organization to work on that. And there is a chance, opportunity to use of open data now. Big data, they are available in every departmental store, and GIS data, they can be collected, they can be used anywhere. And there is a high demands for disaggregated data. This is very important. While talking about SDG indicators, national indicators are more or less available, but in terms of disaggregation, as I discussed, there are 7 provinces and 753 local levels. So there is a high demands of disaggregated level of information, especially of SDGs, and there is a challenges. So as of now, there is no legal framework for data collection. Now, proposed Statistics Act is there. It has some ground for survey clearance system and other type of things where other individuals also can collect data, and they have the recognition, and they need to follow standard concept definitions and methods to generate the data as provided by special organizations, custodian agencies. So this is a bit challenge for the organizations. They are basically new for collecting data. Next, please. For as of now, there is some opportunities. Way forward is there is a high need adopt collaborative scientific approach that needs to be supported by NSO in the beginning. NSO can train CSO where needed while collecting data, and they can organize CSOs for data production and data use as well. And the one important thing is they need to prioritize on community data needs to be implemented immediately. There are some examples in the earthquake disaster in 2012 and this COVID-19 cases. So the government institutions, they didn't have the information. Community data, community had the list of the affected persons. So this data could be immediately used, and they were in fact used in Nepal's case. And they can focus on scope of emergency or especially disaster related data where national government sometimes is not ready to the particular area where disaster occurs. And they need to move from simple to complex method of data collection. In the beginning, we shouldn't expect much like complex survey, census type of things. They should start from the qualitative data and later on go to quantitative type of things. In the beginning, record management from in the beginning to now later on when they got expertise, they go to sample surveys. So the story for the path for the CSOs, community driven data, a long way to go. I think this is we are in the very beginning stage in Nepal's case, and there is a scope they can work. But in the future, I hope this CGD can complement in one day the official statistics, and there will be high use of those data in public policy and public planning. Next, please. Thank you so much. This is all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramhari Gaire, for this insights. And really, I mean, this is really great. And it shows there is still a long way to go. until the capacities have been built, both on the side of civil society, but also on the side of the statistics community, to make these two different types of data really work well with each other. But you also could showcase the great potential that there is, and also the interest on your side to work much more with CGD in the future. So this was very important to hear, this insight. Thank you very much once more. And with that being said, I would like to hand over to our next speaker. As announced before, this time we will hear the perspective from a line ministry, and particularly it will be the Ministry of Planning and Investment in the People's Republic of Vietnam. And I ask Ms. Nga to come to the stage to turn on your camera and to take over control of the slideshow. Ms. Nga, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. So my name is Nga. I come from Ministry of Planning and Investment. So we are the focal point for SDG implementation in Vietnam. So today is very honor for me to be here to learn experience about CGD, and also sharing some information from Vietnam perspective. Actually, I also learned about CGD maybe 3 years ago, 3 or 2 years ago. But after that, I also not have many chance or opportunity to learn about that. So today is a great opportunity for me to learn from experience from other country, and also to know more about this, and also get lesson for Vietnam implementation in the next time. So first of all, I would like to share with you some information about the SDG implementation in Vietnam. As you know that to implement the international commitments, Vietnam also issues the National Action Plan for the 2030 agenda. We also issue the National Statistics System for monitoring and reporting SDG, that's including 158 indicators. We also issue the roadmap for SDG into 2030. In that, we figure out very specific targets for the SDG to 2030. We also carry out some national reports on SDG, as well as the annual SDG reports. And from that, we recognize that we can expect it to achieve 5 out of 17 goals according to the statistics by the end of 2019. And we also recognize that the COVID-19 pandemic also have a big impact on SDG implementation in Vietnam, especially on the SDG 3, 4, 8, and 10. So I would like to share with you 10 key highlights in SDG achievements during from 2060 until now. So you can see that we get a good achievement on multi-dimensional poverty rate. Also, the percentage of people participating in health insurance, and as well as the percentage on students graduating from the secondary school. So you can see on our slide that's 10 key highlights. I cannot list all of the achievement, but I want to share with you 10 key important achievement in SDGs implementation in Vietnam. And from my understand and I think that the the achievement of SDG in Vietnam have a big contribution from the social organization as well as from the NGO. The role of the NGO and social organization also reflect on the national SDG report in Vietnam in 2020. So it includes 3 main points. That's the first one is providing the service to the community, contributing to the achievement of SDG. And the second thing is participating in the contributing and monitoring the policy development. And the third one is connecting and mobilizing the domestic and international resources for SDG implementation. We recognize that and we also engage NGO and social organization into the SDG policy developments and SDG reports. Actually, when we developing the National Action Plan for 2030 agenda and the National SDG report, we engage the NGO and social organization in all process and also in many national consultants to get their participation and their feedback and their contribution for our National Action Plan and SDG report. And actually in the National Action Plan, there's one content in this document said that the role and the contribution of the NGO and social organization is important, and the government should get them during process of implementing, reporting, and also monitoring SDG in Vietnam. And we also reflect the contribution of NGO and social organization on SDG implementation on the national report. As you can see from the MSD in Vietnam also talk about that nearly 80% of feedback, also comment from the NGO also reflect in our report. And we also use data and also from report and survey developing by NGO and social organization in our report to fill the gap that's the national statistics and also the statistics the data from the line ministry cannot afford for their gap. So actually, not only the SDG implementation recognize the importance of the data of the citizens generate data from for SDG, but actually in our government and national policy development, we also recognize the importance of NGO and social organization in the policy development process in the ministry as well as province level. As you know, that in Vietnam we have the Vietnam Fatherland Front. This organization is very important when they get the feedback, also comment from the NGO and social organization, and they also reflect this to the National Assembly, also government during the socio development, socio-economic development process in Vietnam. So I think the engagement of the NGO and social organization is very important. So today our workshop is focusing on the CZD. So I would like to give some recommendation. Is that the first thing, CZD is quite new and for our government as well as our statistics system. Even in our national statistic law, we have the content about that, we can use the non-government data source for the recommendation for the national development process. But until now, as my understanding, we do not develop very clearly about how process, how mechanism, and how modality to involve NGO, also social organization into to provide the informal data set or non-government data set for us. So I think, first of all, in the specific issue on the CZD, we should make capacity building for the government as well as the NGO. And the second thing is that we should organize dialogue among the national HDD focal point and also national statistics organization and NGO to share about the experience and also to have a common voice on CZD. And from that, we can promote action plan or activity regarding on that. And the last is that we should promote piloting CZD in different countries and we also welcome that can pilot in Vietnam. So that's all my experience and also my sharing about Vietnam today. And I would like to thank a lot for the organization to invite me today as like a learner, not a person who have many experience on that. But we Vietnam would like to learn from other countries, especially 4 countries like India, like 3 countries like India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and other countries about the CZD. And we hope that we can promote the result from MSD for Vietnam on CZD in 2022 and incorporate the result into the Vienna in 2023 of Vietnam, I mean next year. And also we can promote the pilot and also promote the activity on CZD in Vietnam in the future to contribute for the data for the HDD implementing. As also we thoroughly think about 3 key points of important point of CZD is that it is for marginalized group and it's filling the data gap, and the last one is buy and for citizen. So thank you for your listening, and thank you. Yeah, I would like to stop my presentation here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ga, for this insight, and very well appreciated insight again, because as you said, CGD, for many people, it's still a new thing. And as we already heard several times throughout the day today, there are not many yet established quality guidelines and quality criteria in the countries that help to facilitate the use of CGD. And what civil society at the moment relies on the most is the openness of governments and the openness of NSO, statistics offices, to look into this topic and to work with civil society on establishing such guidelines and quality criteria. So it's very important for us also to hear from Vietnam that you're looking into this and that you're also looking into using it much more in the coming years in the VNR process and so on. And I just want to say on our end, I mean, we plan to produce a CGD guideline for Vietnam and for Bangladesh in the coming year together with the involvement of government and the NSOs in these 2 countries. So that's very important for us to establish these guidelines. Thank you very much. With that, I would like to come to our next section, and I think we are exactly in time when I look at the clock, which is good. Now it becomes more interactive. We need your feedback. And we will do a little poll with you now. You have heard a lot about CGD, and so you got a good impression of what this is all about now. And now we want to ask you, what are your experiences with it, and what do you perceive as a priority? You already see, I think the first poll question is already on the screen. It's a multiple choice. You can, in this case, choose one answer. So you click on the option you want to have and click on submit. I know that some of you, because techniques is always a bit difficult, some of you might not see that window on your screen. Then in this case, if you don't see the poll question, please go to the chat, because in the chat, you will also see the question. And the question, just let me read it out now. The first of 3 questions is, do you have any prior experiences working with CGD? And the options are no, none. B, a bit. We did some initial testing, piloting, and C, yes, a lot. We have actively used it to complement official data. So we would like to see how the situation is in the room. We have about 100 people in here from different backgrounds. So let's see. And I see, yes, I can see the results now. I hope you can see it as well. There are still answers coming in. At the moment, we are at 42 responses. So I think this is about half of the room having cast a vote. And it's pretty much shared between, yes, we have a bit experience, and no, we didn't collect any experience yet. While I see, yeah, it's 45%, 47%. So, I mean, when I see the responses, probably this won't change so much, even as more answers come in. We can see that some people have a bit of experience with CGD, but nobody really has a lot yet. And there are still many people in the room who don't have any experience yet, which really shows it's still a new topic to many people, and this is absolutely fine. Yeah, I mean, let's maybe move to the next question. Yes, the next question is, do you see any added value in the development of guidelines for the generation of citizen-generated data? So basically what we have discussed a lot in the last 1 hour. And the 3 options are A, I don't think this is really needed. There is no added value. B, I'm a bit unsure, but I'm open to explore. And C, yes, it would be of added value to have such guidelines. Please cast your vote. And I think maybe it's also after, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but after I cast my vote, I can see the results. I hope it's exactly the same for you. And I see we are now at 40 responses, that there is a very large majority saying that yes, absolutely, it would be of added value to have these guidelines in place. So far, this is 88% of the people who have cast their vote saying that, while 12% says I'm unsure, but I'm open to explore, and nobody said I don't think this is needed at all, which kind of underlines, I think, what we have heard before. There is a great potential in CGD, and it would be very good to have guidelines in place that help civil society produce data that can be brought more in line with official statistics standards. Thank you very much. Let's move to the last question. And as always, you remember it from school time, the last question is the trickiest one. It's still a multi-choice question, but now you have 7 possibilities to answer. And we want you to pick the most, the 3 answers that you see as the highest priority. And the question is, in your view, what are the top 3 essential priorities for establishing an inclusive national data partnership? Meaning a partnership of actors, of non-governmental and governmental actors producing data together, including the CGD. So what are the 3 perceived priorities? And the tricky thing is, we think that all of these answers are very important, but we would like to see from you, what is your priority? So the options are A, data quality guidelines, B, trust between government and NGOs, C, political willingness of government to do this in the first place, D, additional finance and capacity building for government and NGOs to produce this data, E, a change in laws and institutional practices, or F, data sharing partnership contract. So when you want to do something together, you have to have an agreement on it. We know that all of these answers are in some way or the other perceived as a priority by stakeholders, because we have done a similar exercise before in a project with Partners for Review and the Danish Institute for Human Rights. And so it's kind of a mean question to give you this, because all of them are important. But let's see, what are your priorities? And now let me see. We have 42 responses, and of course now the things are a bit more tight in results. But I can see there is, at the moment at least, a lead, and this is answer A. The guidelines that we have talked about before seem to be perceived by the most of you as a priority, namely by 28%, followed at the moment at least by answer C, the political willingness of government, and then closely followed by also B, similar answer, actually, the trust between government and NGOs. So maybe also these three things come as a package. When you want to have a guideline in place, you need the interest of government, and there need to be trust between the actors who are involved in creating such a guideline. So I think this is I mean, the perception actually reflects very well what we have also perceived in earlier discussions, that it's a mixture of trust and agreeing on something, on how to work together. And it's very nice to see that this is reflected also in this room. So thank you very much for this. And now we want to make it even more interactive, because as I announced at the beginning, we will go into breakout rooms now. We will have about 15 minutes for that, just to give you an explanation of what will happen now. The title of this meeting is Data Partnerships to Leave No One Behind. So obviously we will talk about how to set up such a data partnership. And there will be two guiding questions. Let me post them into the chat so that you can also see them. I will read them out. What role can national statistic offices play in the quality assurance of CGD? And what role can international development actors play to support statistic offices and civil society in building capacities for such quality assurance? That's question one. Question two is, how can national statistic offices and civil society build data partnerships to ensure no one is left behind? And what role can international development actors play to support such partnerships? So background to these two questions is, we have looked at the participant list here, and we know that there is, we have a lot of NGOs in the room, but we also have a lot of NSO, statistics office here, and several government representatives. And we have a lot of UN agencies and international development actors in the room. So, and we thought it would be good to have questions which kind of represent all these three groups. So it's a collaboration issue between government, NGOs, and international development actors. And we always want to know, like, how can we produce quality assurance guidelines, and how can international development actors like the UN, but also other international actors, support this process? And then, second question, how do you form an actual national partnership? And how can international actors support this, like UN ESCAP or any other international development actor? So these are the questions we want to dive into in the breakout group rooms right now. And we have three rooms. One room will be moderated by Ross from UN ESCAP. So if you can just quickly turn on your camera that we see you. And you will take Mr. Gaibe, Ramhabri Gaibe from the NSO Nepal in your room. as an expert advisor, so to say. Then we will have one room that is going to be moderated by Shantosh and Anne. So the two Leave No One Behind presenters you have seen before. And then there is one room that's going to be moderated by me. And we will have Ms. Nga from the Ministry in Vietnam to provide her expert opinion on this too. And as I understand, I think you don't have to do anything because the colleagues from ESCAP will set up a mechanism now that we are evenly distributed randomly into these 3 rooms. And
the room now.
sorry?
Should I open the room now?
Yeah, just 1 second. Just to announce the time again, you have 15 minutes. And please, the moderators, can you copy paste the questions that are in the chat now and paste them into your breakout room so that everybody can see them again, because I think they will be lost when we go there. Yes.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. Yes, and I think it's fine when people can have the camera on in the breakout groups, but if it gets slow and we cannot understand people, maybe there's too much traffic, then to switch your cameras off again, but at least we can give it a try. And this is going to be a discussion, so you are welcome to shoot, to use a microphone and discuss. And important to notice, the breakout groups will not be recorded. So you will not be on air when you say something. That's also important for trust building. Yeah, and with that being said, I think, Panita, now you can start the rooms. We are ready to go. Sorry for the technical inconvenience. This wasn't planned like this, obviously, but I hope the discussion was still valuable to you. And as Rolf said, when there are any open questions that we couldn't answer today or where we didn't find the time to answer them, please feel free to put them into the chat now before we leave. We will try to come back to you with any open questions that remain. And also, I mean, it has been asked several times today, all the presentations that you saw will be made available on the website of this webinar, on the UN ESCAP website, and also the recording of this event will be made available there. So you will have the chance to revisit everything once more. Question back to Ross, are we still having people in the breakouts, or are we back together, everyone?
I think we're back in the plenary now. So yeah,
Okay.
we can proceed.
Okay, great. In that case, all I can do at this moment is to wrap up, and I want to thank all input providers once more for their great thoughts that they have delivered to this meeting. And I think we really have heard a lot on CGD, first of all, but also what not only what are its possibilities, but also what are the limitations. And in terms of the limitations that we have heard, I'm really happy that there is an openness, or at least I perceive an openness from all sides, from the international development actors, from the governments in the room, from the statistics agencies, to explore this topic much more. And we could also see this in the results of this poll, which is really encouraging. And I think Andrea from SDC also made an important point that, you know, it's a longer process to talk about CGD, and it must happen at national level. And there is a possibility also for international actors to support this, support in terms of helping to define what CGD means in every context, and support in terms of building capacities. This is all needed as we want to go on with CGD and to really use its full potential, both for the national SDG process, but also for policy planning. And I think we heard the sentence, it's a long way to go, several times. Let me underline that, but it's also a rewarding way to go, because I remember back in 2017, I visited the World Data Forum for the first time. And I remember that there was not much open-mindedness in terms of the topic of citizen-generated data. And I perceive that this has changed a lot over the last 5 years. And while we are talking a lot of shrinking civic space, which is indeed a problem for everything that civil society is doing, I have the feeling that at least this civic space on citizen-generated data has slowly opened up over the last 5 years. And this is encouraging. And yes, with that being said, let me just post my email address in case you want to follow up on anything. You can write me an email. Obviously, you can also get in touch with the colleagues from UN ESCAP. And Ross, I don't know if you and your colleagues want to post your email addresses as well into the chat. Please do so.
Yes, I'll do that.
Great. And I think, please have a look at this website where this webinar is hosted. All the follow-up material will appear there in the coming days. There are also valuable resources posted on that website. All the publications that the Leave No One Behind partnership has done, but also the partners we are working with. You can find a lot of this there. And I think also as a last point, yes, I can already see it in the chat. Panita, thank you. There is a meeting evaluation. It has just been posted by Panita into the chat. Please click on this link and leave us once more your thoughts on what you think on this overall topic, on this overall meeting. We would like to hear your opinion and also to know what can we do better next time. So please fill out the meeting evaluation. And yes, with that, I want to thank you once more on behalf of the 3 co-organizers, UN ESCAP, UNSD, and the Leave No One Behind partnership. And say thank you, everyone, and hope to see you again in the near future.